Imagine if Claude Code can one-shot UI designs for you. Well, let me tell you, that's actually possible now. With Playwright MCP, Claude Code can check and see its own work. Not only that, but it will iterate on the work by itself until the UI is completely functioning and looks complete according to the spec you have given it. You're probably thinking there's got to be a catch to this, right? Like, it's probably really hard to set up and not very intuitive to use. Nope. It's actually the opposite. This is legit too easy. I wish I knew this earlier as well, and it would have saved me hundreds of hours. Okay, so what is Playwright and how is it going to allow Claude Code to see its own work? Playwright is a testing framework that is specifically designed for automating and interacting with web pages through the browser. For the purpose of Claude Code, what Playwright MCP does is it allows Claude Code to directly open your web application in a browser, interact with it, take screenshots, and input that back into Claude Code so that it can review and adjust if needed, in turn giving Claude Code the ability to see and iterate on its own work. So who exactly is this useful for? Well, if you're working on a web-based application or web page, landing page, or whatever, this will work for you. But if you're working on an application like an Electron application, this will probably not work for you unless your front end is literally just a web page that can still be run in a browser environment. So how do we use Playwright with Claude Code? Well, first, you're going to have to install the Claude MCP server. To check that Playwright MCP has been configured correctly, just type /mcp in Claude Code and enter into Playwright, and you'll be able to view tools. You can see that it has page snapshot, take a screenshot, exactly what we needed in order to actually allow Claude Code to see what work it has done so far. Now, that was super easy. There's one other thing that we need to do, and that is to modify the claude.md file in our root directory. I am now in my claude.md file. Don't worry, I will have all these instructions in a GitHub repo linked down below in the description. But let me just go through this really quickly. Basically, I add this whole UI guidelines where I say these guidelines only apply when making visual modifications or implementing new UI features as well as email templates. And this is going to be important in just a bit when we do testing here. Right here, I am specifying the UI feedback iteration loop is first going to make the initial changes, start the development server, navigate and capture using the tools available inside of Playwright MCP, is then going to test the responsive design, again using the tools, test the interactions, then identify the issues, and right here, number 7 is going to iterate. If issues are found, make necessary code changes, and it's going to return to step 3, which is going to then loop again and again until the UI has reached the desired outcome. And then final verification here. And then number 9 is cleanup. What I found is that I do need to have this. So it not only closes the browser, but it needs to also kill the development server. This is all great, but you're probably more excited to see what this actually does to my workflow and what the results are using Playwright MCP with Claude Code. I'm going to be running 3 separate experiments here. The first one is going to be creating a pricing page for my application, Claude Maestro. I already drafted the prompt. You'll see that it has already spinned up a new dev server, and it's going to open that up in Chrome. It will then proceed to checking different screen sizes, make adjustments, and iterate on its own. And before it finishes the task, it will make sure to shut down any running dev servers. If I now open up the pricing page manually, you can see that it works just as well in dark mode. All right, that was a simple test. Let's do something a little bit more complex. How about a changelog page where it needs to fetch the release notes from GitHub and then displays it on the website? Again, it has done this perfectly. For the final test, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to have it create an email template using React Email. For this, the UI came out great, but as you can see, there's still some bits and pieces that are not 100% correct, because rather than resizing the email itself using React Email, it is resizing the whole browser in terms of like the whole React Email dev tool, which doesn't really make sense. And it did fail at grabbing the release notes from GitHub and putting it in the email. Overall, the results are great, so I'm pretty happy with what it came up with. Now that you know how to set up Playwright MCP server with Claude Code and you've seen how powerful this is, you may be thinking this is great and all, but this iteration loop does take a lot of the main context window. How can I optimize this? How can I reduce the amount of context usage by the Playwright MCP tools? Well, that's actually where sub-agents come in. And let me show you how I've set this up. Okay, I have specified a new agent in the UI tester.md file under the agents directory under .claude. I'm not going to go into how to create sub-agents because I think there's already amazing videos out there that explains that, and the documentation show you how to do that. All I'm going to do is just show you quickly what I have in here. All this will be on GitHub link down below in the description, don't worry. All right, here I'm just describing the agent, specialized agent for testing UI changes through visual feedback iteration, automatically tests responsive design, interactions, and accessibility across multiple breakpoints. And these are the tools that I am allowing it to use. And then here's just defining what the iteration loop looks like, as well as what it needs to provide back to the main agent. And all this basically came from the UI guidelines section that was previously in the claude.md file. And if I take a look at claude.md file now, you can see that the UI guidelines section has been reduced massively. The most notable change here is that we're going to now use the task tool to launch the UI tester sub-agents with the following parameters. So the URL to test, the description of what was changed, the requirements to verify. And then what the sub-agent does is going to create a report that then gives back to the main agent to review. The main agent is going to review the report, it's going to make necessary changes, and then is going to re-invoke the sub-agent. So it's going to go back to step 2 and repeat the step 2 to 4 in an iteration loop until it is satisfied with the outcome. And that's really all you need to really streamline and optimize this workflow. But before we end this video, I do want to mention a few caveats that you got to know about using the sub-agent approach. And the first one is going to be, when you're using sub-agents, you will not see Chrome actually open. It'll do all that in the background. At least that's what I found. If you have experience with this and you are seeing different results, please let me know down below in the comments. The other thing is that in Claude Code IDE extension, weirdly, it doesn't show when sub-agents are being invoked. It'll just be stuck on a step for very long, and then it'll move on after that. But in Claude Code CLI, you'll still see the sub-agents being invoked, and it's very clearly labeled. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy this video right here, where I talk about how to run Claude Code on GitHub and use that to run background tasks. It's all very fun. All right, with that said, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.